And the truth of the matter is that when you take a look at having that amount of freedom, you have to be better than you have to be when you're utilizing that freedom productively. Well, if I'm being as good as I have to be, then maybe you have to raise how much or how you have to be.
The fear that I used to have when I was a teacher of being late was that there were going to be 25 kids in that room that didn't have a teacher when they walked in at 8 a.m. You'll see a lot more people living by a schedule, doing what it is they have to do on a daily basis.
Which then enables them to not have to be as good as they have to be to a higher standard.
Yeah.
Matt Weaver, the #1 mortgage originator in the United States for most loans closed in 2023 and #1 in the state of Florida from 2020 to present, has spent over 27 years mastering the purchase market, earning more than 16 #1 titles across his career. Max Fisch, 2024's #1 originator in the United States under 30 and #2 in the state of Florida, achieved those titles within just 5 years of entering the mortgage industry, compressing decades of growth into a few extraordinary years. Collectively, they've helped more than 40,000 families purchase their first home. Now partners and looking to improve the industry on a national scale, Matt and Max share their winning formula, team structure, and systems with originators who want to scale from elite to extraordinary levels.
So Matt, just before we got on air, we were talking about a staggering number, a staggering statistic represented by 87%. 87% of anything is a high number.
That's a high number.
And I know that you wanted to share. I feel it's important for everybody to hear what that number represents.
Well, what we asked our group, if you recall, we asked them, what do real estate agents and mortgage originators have in common? Okay. And the answer to that was 87%, which meant this. 87% of licensed real estate agents and 87% of licensed mortgage loan originators fail in the first 12 months of entering the industry. Okay, that is a high failure rate.
Very.
So then let's think about this. Why? Why is that? Why do 87% fail? And the answer? Freedom. Freedom.
So interesting.
I want you to think about that.
Yeah.
Okay. The freedom of one's schedule is single-handedly the culprit of failing at a high level. Okay. And it's tough. It's a challenge because, essentially you're getting into an industry that no one is knocking on your door. No one is telling you what you have to do each and every day. You can show up. You don't have to show up. But see, all that time loss ends up resulting into a lack of transactions, which ends up resulting into a lack of income, which ends up resulting into failing. So the irony is that the freedom actually robs you of your financial freedom. And that's what's so interesting. So we talk about that very carefully with our rainmakers. As you know, our team structure is built out very differently.
Yeah.
And so our rainmakers, we try to take away their freedom in a good way. Watch, I want my freedom taken away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have to be tied into a disciplined schedule.
Yeah.
We have to know what we're doing every single day. The system that we're designing, we know what that system is. Okay, it's going to keep us so on course, and our rainmakers so on course, down to each hour on knowing what to do, who to call, because all the agents will be classified and categorized and so on.
Yep.
So what I would say is that for a lot of the originators right now, the biggest challenge is having a lot of freedom. And then you couple that with looking at the news, you couple that with seeing what's going on in the world, and then you can start really rationalizing with yourself. And the rationalization is, well, things are really tough out there, and, there's another, challenge in the Middle East, not belittling that, but there's another challenge in the Middle East. So it must be quiet. It must be slow for everyone. And then watch this week. The kids are going back to school, so it must be slow there too, rather than looking yourself in the mirror and asking yourself truly, what have you done Monday through Friday that can result to better enhancing your production?
Yep.
Are you committed? Are you 40, 50, 60 hours plus? How much are you prospecting? Because the life of a rainmaker is prospecting. But a lot of people don't want to hear that.
Without a doubt.
Or are they just doing Facebook posts?
Well, you know what the irony is, Matt?
Tell me.
The irony is that when people come into our industry, whether it's real estate or the mortgage industry, if you ask them, well, why are you getting into this industry? The reason they say is because of freedom.
Yes.
That's the irony. So the very reason that they get into the industry is their greatest downfall. That's why it's 87%.
Right.
Because if you think about it, I used to be a teacher. Okay. And I share this with our rainmakers all the time when we talk about schedule, the importance of schedule. And class started at 8 a.m. At 8 a.m., there were 25 students that were going to be entering your classroom.
Right.
Whether you were there or not. And the fear, I remember, and I'm just sharing with you my mindset on it. The fear that I used to have when I was a teacher of being late was that there were going to be 25 kids in that room that didn't have a teacher when they walked in at 8 a.m.
Right.
So ask me how many times that I was late. 0. And if you think about it, teachers can't be late by 5 minutes.
No.
They can't, because the students are relying on them to be there. So the culture behind professions like that is that you are never late. You do not have an option.
Right.
You are on a schedule. Class starts at 8 a.m. It's done at 8:50. You have a 5-minute break. The next students are going to be there at 8:55.
Exactly.
And on that goes. So it's so fascinating when you think about it, because in these professions where you have to be on time, you have to be on a schedule, you'll see a lot less people late. You'll see a lot more people living by a schedule, doing what it is they have to do on a daily basis. But the second that you add that freedom component in there,
Right.
now you start to get into that concept that we've talked about many times, those 7 words, okay, which is being better than you have to be. Now you get into the psychology, the mindset of the fact that, and the fact of the matter is that most people aren't better than they have to be.
Correct.
They're as good as they have to be. And that's why the freedom that this industry grants, the very reason people get into it, is the same reason why 87% fail.
Without a doubt. Let's get back to those 7 words because it all ties in. So being better than you have to be. Those are the 7 words that we talk about. And the truth of the matter is that when you take a look at having that amount of freedom, you have to be better than you have to be when you're utilizing that freedom productively.
Yes.
You're not forced to have to use it productively. So most people aren't going to do that. So most people are going to be as good as they have to be. So then here's the question. Do we just raise how good they have to be? So if you're one of those people, and you're looking yourself in the mirror and you say, well, look, I'm not being better than I have to be with the amount of time I have on my hands.
Yeah.
Then I think what we have to do is take a look at, well, if I'm being as good as I have to be, then maybe you have to raise how much or how you have to be. So how do they raise that, Max? We talked about this. How do they raise how I can't even say it's like a tongue twister. How do they raise? Seriously now, how do they raise how they have to be?
Well, first it starts with standards. It starts with your standards that you hold in your personal life, and it starts with standards that you have in your professional life.
Right.
And so what standard are you holding yourself to? And whatever that standard is, we want to make sure that we're being intentional and consistently raising.
Well, let's give some examples of standards. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So like, let's say in our personal life.
Right.
Okay. Well, I guess it could be personal or business. But for example, when we first met, it was interesting. We were talking about it, and we were talking about travel.
Right.
Okay. And a standard that I now have is that when I travel first class. It's a standard. And so now anything less than that is falling below my standard. So now when I travel, like, that's what I'm making sure that I do. Now I have to work towards that. Okay. It's motivating me to be better in what I do so that I can meet and live up to that standard. But that's just an example of anything that we're adding. Okay. Whether it be personally or professionally, in adding as a standard to our business. Okay. That we must hit. There is no question about it. The only option is to hit whatever it is that standard is.
And that's where the challenge comes into play. So I would probably guess that for those that aren't hitting their goals, those that are not utilizing their time to the best of their ability, taking a little bit too much advantage of the freedom that the industry can give them, I would bet if they looked at their standards are much lower,
Yes.
which then enables them to not have to be as good as they have to be to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge in itself.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, Matt, like the standard when I was a teacher was that you were in the classroom at this certain time.
Yep.
So then everyone was in the classroom at that time.
Right.
It's very, we want to make sure it's not complicated. It's very much so just dependent on what the standards you have for your schedule and for your life and what it takes to be able to live the way you want to live and achieve the things you want to achieve in business. And if those aren't clearly defined, then you're just kind of like on a daily basis, just like floating around. You know, there's nothing to meet. There's no standard goal, operating system by which you operate. It's just kind of like floating around, which I think is important when we talk about that freedom, because when you have the freedom, no one is going to do that for you.
No one. And no one's going to knock on your door.
No, that's what I mean. Like
You're out.
nobody's chasing after you to make sure that you're doing. So you're either going to do it yourself, or you can be a part of an organization that has these standards created already for you. That's the idea. And I think that's what's missing in our industry,
Without a doubt.
you know? So I think it's very important for people to pay attention to.
And the takeaway for everyone, what would you say that is, Max?
Well, I think number one, I think the takeaway is whatever you want to achieve, make sure your standards are in line with what you want to achieve. And if you find yourself just kind of floating around, then raise the standard you have in your personal life. Okay. Raise the standards that you have in your business life. If you're having a hard time just exceeding those goals on a consistent basis, then as long as you're raising, okay, your production and your productivity will raise along with it. So I would say to be very intentional about doing those things.
Because at the end of the day, the human will is unbelievably powerful. So when someone has to do something, they perform.
Yep.
It's the times where they don't necessarily have to do it.
Yeah.
So a large percentage of society just doesn't perform because they don't have to.
Yeah.
So if you're not where you want to be, similar to what you're saying, just force yourself. And the way you force yourself is by raising your standards.
Well, so think about this. It's so true. Think about this, Matt. For anyone listening, let's just say, for example, someone had $11,000 in their bank account. And for whatever reason, you went out and spent $10,000 of it and you only had $1,000 left. You might work a little bit harder the next day.
Yes.
When you feel that pressure.
Yes.
And so I think it's so important. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Likewise, Max.
At F13, you're not just joining an originator consulting company. You're joining an elite group of originators, all chasing number one, challenging each other to think differently, to think in an unorthodox manner. So visit think13.com to learn more about F13 Consulting so that you can scale your business to extraordinary levels. Thank you for watching.